Valentine's Day is the only holiday where you can hand someone a tiny pastel tablet that tastes like flavored drywall and they'll say, "Aw, how sweet." And honestly, that's the magic of conversation hearts. Yeah, they're the only candy that can simultaneously confess your love, confuse your dentist, and make you question whether "you are cute" is a compliment or a threat. But behind these crunchy little love notes is a story filled with romance, innovation, heartbreak, resurrection, and more drama than a season of the Waltons. So grab a handful of chalky affection, because today I am going before the barcode to uncover the surprisingly epic history of conversation hearts. The candy that proves that love may be sweet, but it definitely comes with a crunch. I can explain, I think. Paul here. Every February, just as the last pine needles from Christmas finally stop falling out of your carpet, the world turns pink, red, and aggressively heart-shaped. Yeah, and right in the middle of that pastel explosion sits one of the most iconic, most divisive, and most unintentionally hilarious candies ever. Conversation hearts. Whether you call them sweethearts, candy hearts, or those chalky little tablets that taste like antacid but somehow still spark joy, these tiny pastel pucks have been whispering sweet nothings to us for over a century. Today, we're going before the barcode to uncover the surprisingly romantic, occasionally weird, and always entertaining history of conversation hearts. A candy that proves that love may be sweet, but it also, as I said, is a little crunchy. Now look, our story begins not with a chocolatier, not with Cupid, and not with a marketing team trying to sell sugar to lonely people, but with a pharmacist. Yeah, nothing says romance like a man in the 1800s trying to cure bad breath. In 1847, Boston pharmacist Oliver R. Chase invented a machine to streamline the production of medical lozenges. Yeah, this was the 19th century equivalent of inventing a Keurig. Suddenly, everyone could pump out little tablets with ease. And they did. Chase realized that if he swapped out the medicine for sugar, he could make candy instead. And just like that, the world's first candy-making machine was born. Oh, joy. And Oliver accidentally became the Willy Wonka of New England. Chase and his brother Silas founded what would eventually become the New England Confectionery Company. Not a great ring to it, but it's better known as Necco. Yeah, you remember Necco wafers, of course, right? Same thing. But before the hearts came the messages. And this is where things get delightfully weird. In the mid-1800s, long before texting, emojis, or swiping right, people exchanged motto candies. Little sugar wafers with printed sayings. These were inspired by even older treats that were called kissing comfits, which date back to Shakespeare's time. Yeah, Shakespearean era flirting involved breath mints with candy and romantic mottos. Who knew? Imagine Romeo tossing Juliet a mint that said, "Thou art fine." By the late 1800s, Necco had perfected the art of stamping short messages onto candy. But the hearts themselves didn't arrive until 1901, when the company introduced the now classic heart shape. Suddenly, Valentine's Day had a mascot, and it wasn't a cherub with a questionable work ethic. It was a tiny pastel heart that said things like "be mine," "kiss me," and later "fax me," depending on the decade, The early messages were surprisingly long, believe it or not, sometimes full sentences. Yeah, because apparently people in the 19th century had more patience for reading candy than we do now. Over time, the phrases got shorter, a lot shorter, snappier, and more meme-friendly. Now let's talk flavor, or whatever you want to call it. Conversation hearts have always had that signature chalky texture, like a Smartie that went to a finishing school. The flavors have changed over the years, from wintergreen and clove to fruitier profiles, but the texture, that's kind of remained consistent. Some people love it, some people hate it. And some people only eat them because they're already holding the bag and it feels rude not to. Done that. But no matter how you feel about the taste, the nostalgia is undeniable. These candies are edible time capsules, crunchy little love notes from generations past. One of the most famous parts of Conversation Hearts history is how the messages evolved with times. In the early 1900s, you'd get phrases like "be true," "married in white," "you'd have chosen right." But the 1900s, we had "email me." The 2000s, "text me." And today, you get "DM me," "bay," or "swipe right." If these candies last another 100 years, expect hearts to say, I don't know, "buffering, low battery. I saw your location turn off." I don't know. The messages are updated annually. And the companies behind them have always tried to keep them culturally relevant. It's like the candy version of updating slang, so you don't sound too much like a time traveler. But conversation hearts haven't always had a smooth ride. Oh no, in 2018, Necco, the company that produced these candies for over a century, abruptly shut down. For the first time since 1901, Valentine's Day arrived with no sweethearts on store shelves. It was a heartbreak heard around the world. It was like the Grinch that stole Valentine's Day. Candy fans panicked. Collectors hoarded old boxes. Some people even tried to make their own at home. That wasn't pretty. That's how you learn that making candy's harder than it looks. I tried. Anyway, thankfully, another candy company eventually revived Sweethearts in 2020. But the comeback wasn't perfect. The first year back, the company had printing issues, and many hearts were blank. That's never good. Nothing says romance like a candy that stares back at you silently. It's like judging your life choices. Sales of conversation hearts have always been massive. For decades, they were the #1 selling Valentine's candy in the United States. That's true, beating out chocolates, yes, and gummies and whatever those mystery truffles are that nobody eats. And at their peak, factories produced around 8 billion hearts per year. That's enough to give every person on Earth a tiny pastel compliment, whether they want it or not, because that's how these things work. Even today, sweethearts remain a seasonal juggernaut, with millions of pounds sold every January and February. They're the candy equivalent of a holiday pop star. They disappear for most of the year and then suddenly dominate the season. Anyway, here's a fun bit of trivia. Conversation hearts, they were originally much larger. Early versions were the size of basketballs. I'm kidding, silver dollars. And they included the full sentences like, "Please send a lock of your hair." That's not a candy message, that's a red flag. Over time, though, the hearts shrank and the messages got shorter. Probably because printing technology improved and because nobody wants to look at their candy and have to read a paragraph before eating something. Another surprising fact, the original heart-making machine from the 1800s was so efficient that versions of it were used for over a century. Oliver Chase would be thrilled to know that his lozenge machine became the Elton John of the candy equipment, still performing, still iconic after so many years. Conversation hearts have also become pop culture staples. They've appeared, of course, in movies, TV shows, art installations, even political campaigns and YouTube videos. Oh, yeah. Some companies have created custom hearts with personalized messages. Yeah, you can get your own message printed, which is adorable unless your message is, "we need to talk." Oh, they've been used for marriage proposals, breakup announcements, pretty much anything you can think of, and in everything in between that. If you can fit it on a heart, someone has probably tried it, is what I'm saying. And yeah, there have been misprints over the years. Hearts that accidentally said things like "go home," "no way," or "you are annoying." Honestly, those might be the most accurate ones. So, why do conversation hearts endure? Why can I run out and buy these? Well, we eat them. I post about them on social media, even though half the world insists they taste like drywall. The answer is simple. Tradition. They're nostalgia. They're tiny, colorful reminders that love doesn't have to be perfect to be sweet. They're the candy version of the rom-com, and I've been in a few. A little cheesy, a little predictable, but somehow irresistible. Kind of. And every February, they return to remind us that romance can be silly, sentimental, and occasionally misspelled. All right, look, as I wrap up this journey we're having on Before the Barcode, conversation hearts stand out as one of the most enduring holiday candies in American history. Born from a pharmacist's lozenge machine. Wow! What are all the side effects? Anyway, Victorian flirtation, and they were nearly lost to bankruptcy, resurrected by Brock's, a new generation. These tiny treats have survived changing tastes, changing technology, changing times, and now I'm changing my mind about pulling one out of the box. Anyway, they've whispered us for centuries, whispered to us. So the next time you open a box of conversation hearts, hopefully easier than I just did, and you find one that says "Be mine, call me," or the ever-romantic LOL, remember, you're not just eating a candy. You're biting into over a century of sugary flirtation, industrial innovation, and messages that somehow survived everything from Victorian courtship to modern dating apps. Who hasn't? Hey, conversation hearts have outlasted companies, trends, and the last 3 different waves of saying "text me." They're imperfect, sure. They're nostalgic, and they're a little chalky, just like most great love stories. Now, if that isn't sweet enough for you, well, then let me pick a random one, and we'll see what it says. I got the box open here, and this is completely random. I'm looking at it, and it says BFF. That's right, BFF. Not really what you want to see from someone you got a crush on.